Thank you very much. And welcome to the Perth Common Good Fund committee meeting for Monday, the 29th of April 2024. I have apologies from Councillor McPherson and Councillor Rebeck, who are involved in other duties, and from Councillor Liz Barrett, who sadly is ill. And Peter, I'm sure you will convey our good wishes to her. I have not heard, but I believe Councillor Drysdale is involved in other matters too. Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I've got 3 declarations of interest. I have a financial declaration on item 6.24, as I'm treasurer of one of the named organisations that was getting costings. I've got a non-financial interest in item 6.27 as part of the organising group within the council for that event. And I have a non-financial interest in item 7.5 as my grandson plays for the club. Although he's not part of this ward, he will benefit from the improvements in the club. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Chan, Andy?
Declaration of interest in 6.33 Perth and Kinross Mela Festival. I'm the chairman of the association.
Thank you. Moving on then to item 3, the minutes of the meeting of the Perth Common Good Fund Committee of 29th of January 2024. Are there any matters arising, or can we approve those minutes? We are content. Thank you. Moving on then to item 5, the applications for financial assistance. I will go through these in the normal way. We will come to the matter of the paragraph 5.1, the application by Strathern Roundtable in due course, because that's the subject of a separate paper. We come first to 4 applications from the Polish Scouting Association, divided into 4 separate applications, which we will look at in turn. The first one is the Marine Adventure and Scouting Experience. A grant of £1,000 has been requested to support the organisation in providing 2 impactful experiences for Polish cubs in Perth through a trip to Sea Life, Loch Lomond Aquarium, and a 3-day camp at Templars Park Scout campsite. I'm happy to recommend that we make the grant of £1,000, which is consistent with criteria 9.7. Are other members so minded? Agreed, thank you. With regards to the second item, the World Jamboree for the 64th DH Girl Scouts, a grant of £900 has been requested by Polish Scouting Association. This grant will support the attendance of 6 Girl Scouts from the 64th DH Girl Scouts at the World Scout Jamboree in North Carolina, USA. And it's considered that a grant of up to £500 is consistent with criteria 9.7, and I'm happy to recommend that. Are others so minded? Agreed, thank you. The third one here, the World Jamboree for the 44th BH Boy Scouts. This is for Boy Scouts to attend the same event in North Carolina. Again, there's a request for a grant of £900, but a grant of £500 is consistent with criteria 9.7, and I'm happy to recommend that amount. Are others so minded? Agreed, thank you. And the final one in this sequence is for exploring Slavic mythology and folklore. A grant of £1,000 has been requested to support costs relating to attending a summer camp to be held at the Scout Adventures at Magurney in Glen Lyon from the 3rd to the 17th of July this year. And I'm happy to recommend the grant of £1,000 that is consistent with criteria 9.7. Are others so minded? Great, thank you very much. Moving on to Our Ladies Primary School Parent Council. A grant of £1,408.52 has been requested by the Parent Council of Our Ladies Primary School. This grant will support costs towards a trip to Carfin Grotto for all P1 to P7 classes on the 31st of May this year. Again, I'm happy to recommend the grant of £1,000 that is proposed and is consistent with criteria 9.7. Are others so minded? Agreed, thank you. And then the next one at paragraph 618 for Early Years Scotland. A grant of £2,006 has been requested from Early Years Scotland. This grant will be used to purchase early years play and learning resources and baby massage sensory items to deliver their children affected by parental imprisonment programme in HMP Perth, benefiting children and families who have a parent imprisoned there. In line with criteria 9.8, the committee is asked to consider the request and determine a level of grant. I am happy to recommend that we make the grant for £2,006, the amounts requested. Are others so minded?
Yeah, I did have a C in the comments. Yeah,
Sorry,
it is. I was going to do exactly the same, so I'm happy to second your proposal for 2006. This is very worthwhile and a good project. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hearn. I'm sorry, Bailey Hearn. I'm conscious that you have a employment experience there, and I'm happy to pick up on your recommendation. So we are agreed on a grant of £2,006. Thank you. We move on then to 621, the Perth Choral Society. A grant of £1,000 has been requested by Perth Choral Society towards enhancing their annual Handel's Messiah concert. The grant will support the group in staging the concert in the larger and more accessible venue of Perth Concert Hall with a full orchestra and soloists. And I'm happy to recommend the grant of £1,000 that is proposed and is consistent with criteria 9.2b. Are others so minded? Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving then to 6.24 for the Chanson Chamber Choir. A grant of £2,200 has been requested by Chanson Chamber Choir for activities associated with a visit from the Ars Antiqua Chamber Choir from Aschaffenburg. The grant will support the rehearsing, marketing and performance of a joint concert at St John's Kirk, a trip to Pitlochry and farewell Cayley at the Salutation Hotel. The funding requested is £2,200, and in line with criteria 9.8, the committee is asked to consider the request and determine a level of a grant. I'm happy to recommend that we grant £1,600, which is 25% of the total proposed expenditure, but I'm happy if others have alternatives they wish to propose. Councillor Barrett. Councillor Barrett is happy to second. Peter Barrett is happy to second my proposal. It's on now. Are others content with that proposal? Okay, agreed. That's a grant of £1,600 for the Chanson Chamber Choir. We then come to the first of two large applications. The first is in respect of the City of Perth Salute, where a grant of £17,500 has been requested by the PKC events team. And I'll just mention that we have a second large application with regard to the Mellor Festival of 2024. What I'd like to say here is I've taken certain soundings, and whilst I want to consider these individually today for this year, I would like to bring forward a paper to a future committee where we can consider whether, as with the firework event, we put these events onto an annual funding basis. To me, they are both important events in the calendar of the city, if you like. They represent different strands of society, and my view is that if they're larger events, if we can, and I accept that others may have a different view, and that's why I want to bring forward a paper that we will, if you like, make provision for those to be funded as the fireworks are at present. In other words, we put money aside in the budget, but the application has still to come in. I think there's a counter view that certainly with the City of Perth Salute, that event might has previously been fully funded from council resources, but I think we're in a position where perhaps that is not realistic in this day and age, and if it is to continue, then we should consider funding it from the Perth Common Good Fund, and I'm happy to consider that. And I hope members will be content that we bring forward a paper to a future meeting to look at ongoing funding for both of those events. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Convener. I think that's a very sensible suggestion. I attended both events last year and in previous years. They're extremely well attended by a large cross section of the population of Perth City, and I think it's something. I think that suggestion is eminently sensible, and I would support it.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Barrett.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor McCall and with what you're proposing, Convener. I think when you look at these two events in total and the potential amount of the small grants budget that we would be committing today, which comes to almost 2/3 of the budget, I think it perhaps is stretching it to say that these are small grants given the scale of the funding that I think we would happily give to support. But I think if we are to arrange an annual budget, we can decide what that should be, and also consider what is an appropriate small grants budget to see us through the course of the year. So yeah, happy to go along with that.
Thank you very much for that. And in that case, I feel confident, if you like, in bringing forward a paper to a future meeting for consideration of that. Moving on then to consider for this year the application for the support to the City of Perth Salute. A grant of £17,500 has been requested by the PKC events team, and I'm happy to recommend that we grant that the amount they are seeking of £17,500, particularly in the context that perhaps the Perth Salute, which originally started through the good offices of our previous Lord Lieutenant as a sort of spin-off from the Edinburgh Tattoo, but is progressively, I think, becoming more of a Perth Salute in a sense of a salute to people and organisations from our own community, and that to me is important in this one. So I'm happy to recommend that we make that grant of £17,500. Are others of a similar opinion? Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. We now move to 6.30, Roverway International 2024. This is at the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. A grant of £300 has been requested by 3 individuals, 1 young person and 2 adults, to help support them in attending Roverway, an international scouting jamboree held this year in northern Norway. And they would appear to be, it's a considerable amount of expenditure. They're finding resourcing from other areas, and they're just requesting £300 from us, consistent with criteria 9.5, and I'm content to recommend that we grant them that £300. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Well, blow my nose. Apologies. We now come to 6.33, the Perth and Kinross Mellor Festival 2024. and bearing in mind the remarks I've just made, a grant of £15,800 has been requested by the Perth and Kinross Mellor Association, and I'm happy to recommend that we make the grant of £15,800 consistent with criteria 9.2 alpha. Are others so minded? Agreed. Thank you very much. We move now to 6.36, the Sri Lankan community. This grant is for an event that has already taken place, but the grant came in prior to the event, and it's coming to us now only because of the programming of common good meetings. So it is in the category of those that can be permitted. A grant of £2,600 has been requested by the Sri Lankan community in Perth and Kinross to support the new organisation and the celebration of the Sri Lankan New Year Festival in Scotland for 2024. I was sad that I wasn't able to attend this myself, but I understand that it was a very good event. It's considered that a grant of £2,080 is consistent with criteria 9.2 alpha, and I'm happy to recommend that we make that grant of £2,080. Are others so happy? Okay, thank you very much. That completes the small and perhaps not so small grants. We now move to the capital grants, and the first one is from St John's Football Club, a small club that has been based for a long time at Rose Terrace and plays on the North Inch, and they have made an application for a total of £9,681.10, and it's considered that a grant of £2,420 is consistent with criteria 10.4, and I'm happy to recommend that we provide a grant of that size to support this club in, I know that the work is associated with doing their best to waterproof their basement premises at Rose Terrace. Are others happy to support that grant? Sorry, Peter, did you have a point there?
Yeah, Convener, I'm happy to support it, but I am aware that there's a real sad history of regular inundation of the changing rooms in Rose Terrace for the football club, and I'm also aware that they've been in close contact with Scottish Water, so I would really like to seek assurance that what they're proposing and what Scottish Water are proposing is actually going to address the problems, for rather than have the football club have to come back to us with yet another flooding event and seek further assistance. So and I'd also be keen to know whether Scottish Water were prepared to chip in to help as well. So.
Thank you for that. I would share your concern, which is mitigated by the fact that I have earlier, before this application, visited their premises and gone through with them the exact nature of the works that they're proposing to undertake, and I would I think they are robust and do, if you like, solve the problem rather than merely make repairs for damage that has been done. They are very much designed towards making sure that flooding cannot happen again, in terms of particularly addressing the basically the plug for the shower there, where they want to put in facilities that will prevent the backing up of the water, which is the main cause of water entering the premises. They have got more robust sealed doors and windows for, if you like, the other water ingress points. So I would be content to go ahead. Thank you. Can we agree then to make the grant of £2,420? Thank you. We move on now to an application from Fair City Association Football Club in respect of the ground that they use at Ruthven Field. Fair City AFC are, to my knowledge, based in Bertha Park, and Ruthven Field is, but both Bertha Park and Ruthven Field are presently outside the area that the Common Good Fund covers, but this application involves benefit to people who do live in the Common Good Fund area. This application has thrown up to me the matter of on what basis are the boundaries of the Common Good area determined? At the moment, it's simply the 3 city centre wards, and I've asked, if you like, what is the logic to boundaries that are essentially at the beck and call of the Local Boundaries Commission. And again, I have taken the initiative to look at a piece of work, to look at what were the historical boundaries and see what, if you like, constraints and freedoms we have with regards to considering what boundaries we should have for the Common Good Fund, because I believe the present ones have a very tenuous, if you like, standing on consideration and are not the same as the boundaries pre-1975. So I would like members to give consideration to this grant today, but again, I want to bring forward a paper to a future meeting, perhaps not the next one, this might take a little bit of time, where we review the boundaries of the Common Good Fund area, consistent with what freedoms we have to change them, what constraints may prevent us from changing them, but to better reflect, if you like, I would hope, the growing nature of the city. I think going into the future, it's impossible, I think, reasonably to say that Bertha Park is not part of Perth City, that the beyond the Western Edge housing is not part of City, and 1 or 2 other small areas are not part of the city. So that I hope members will support me in bringing forward a paper looking at the boundaries to see what we might or might not be able to do in terms of those boundaries in the future. Before we go on to look at this particular item, does anyone want to make comment against what I've just said? First of all, Bailey Hearn.
Yes, thank you. I have some agreement with what you were saying there, but you will need to talk to the surrounding Common Good Funds, because otherwise you're going to end up with a situation where you may have areas that are covered by 2 Common Good Funds. So it would have to be agreed by all the others as well.
Thanks very much. I don't think we would ever. I have actually made 1 or 2 inquiries as to what is the logic of the boundaries of the other Common Good Funds, and they seem to actually be less well defined than Perth is at the moment. So I perhaps have risked opening a can of worms here, but I do want to look at it, because I think it's something that we should get to grips with at this point in time. But I think. I take your point, but I don't think we would ever be extending the boundaries to the extent that we would conflict with other Common Good Funds in the Perth Kinross Council area.
My only comment in that is, you mentioned Bertha Park, is that if we were to get funds from Bertha Park, from the school, for example, that doesn't benefit residents of Perth City Centre. And it's a bit difficult, because if you redefine the boundaries, but you don't get many people that will then tend to live within it, because a lot of Bertha Park are from Bridge of Erne, from Lunkerty, from other areas that are well outside the boundaries. So yes, while I can see it in this instance, it may throw up a few issues in terms of the school, for example, and things like that, where it doesn't benefit residents.
Yeah, indeed, I accept everything that you say, and there I think we have the gate guardians that we routinely in applications look at. We already do look at applications from within the city in the context of how many people from the city do they benefit. An organisation based in the city applies for funds, and we routinely ask them to, if you like, make clear what is the benefit to residents of the city. So I think that same principle could apply. And Councillor McCall.
Thank you, convener, and thanks to Councillor Hearn for his comments. I think a review is a good thing on a regular basis anyway, because things change. And I think we shouldn't try and preempt what that review the outcome of that review should be. And having said that, I don't think we should consider this application next based on what we assume the outcome might be, or some preposition that it might be. It's like we need to review this next application on its own merits within the existing criteria. I would welcome a review because I think it's a good thing to do on a regular basis.
Thank you for that. And I'm in a sense reassured that people are supportive of doing some work that reviews the boundaries that we use and perhaps proposes changes. But exactly as Councillor Sheila McCall suggests, I want to look at the application we have today in the context of the rules that we run with or the boundaries that we use at the moment. So if we can go ahead and look at paragraph 7.5, the application by Fair City AFC, they've requested funding of £14,913.51. It's considered that a grant of £3,840 is consistent with criteria 10.3 and 10.4, and I'm happy to recommend that on the basis that a proportion of the members of that club are from the Common Good Fund area as we presently know it. And I would ask if others are similarly minded. Councillor McCall.
Thank you. It's a bit vague as to how many exactly within the Perth City area or the Common Good area is included, but I understand your sentiments and what you proposed. But I do have a question for officers, if I may. This is quite a substantive amount of money this organisation has to raise, and I'm just wondering what role our community development teams can do working with organisations such as this to help them access funds from other funding sources before they even come as far as this committee here.
Thank you. You make a good point. Lee, do you have any comments you can make in relation to that question just now? Thank you.
Yeah, the standard approach is to wait until committee has made a determination, because although officers make what we call it a consideration in terms of the report based on the criteria, obviously committee has the power to offer the full amount if they so wish. But in this case, what we would do as part of the grant award would be to encourage the Fair City AFC to contact the local community worker and offer them a copy of our funding alert as well, to try and help them identify alternative funding sources that can help fill that gap. So in this case, we have a CLD team based in Perth City, and of course we have a team that covers Strath Tay. So between the two of them, one of those teams would be in the best position to help.
Thank you, Lee. I think that would be really helpful. Because this is quite a substantial amount of money, and I just know from other work that I've done that there is funding sources available that they may not be aware of, and it's maybe just particularly in these straitened times when they can't always get the donations they might want from their own members or from the wider community, that it might be something for us as a council as a whole, community development teams, to reach out to some of these organisations and just make sure that they're not only in our mailing list but they're aware of what they need to do, because applying for funding can sometimes be a black art on occasion. Thank you. And if that's maybe part of the condition of the grant award here, that we liaise with them to try and support them to seek funding for elsewhere.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I wouldn't want to make it a specific condition in this case, because we are already protected, if you like, against nugatory expenditure, in that we only make the payments of grants awarded on the completion of works. So I think that, yeah. But certainly I think your point that we should help organisations look to other sources of funding is a good one. Thank you for that, Lee. On that basis, then, would members be content to agree the recommendation of £3,840 to the Fair City AFC on this occasion? Councillor Barrett, do you want to raise an amendment?
Yeah, Kieran, I just think that they're not within the Common Good Fund area, and appreciate the name of the site is derived from Perth, and I appreciate also what you're saying in terms of Bertha Park, but it's not within Bertha Park either. I think I would be more comfortable knowing how many of the squad were actually from Perth, and whether there would be some weighting given to that as a proportion of the players in the club. So I think, although the recommendation is up to 3,800, I would like to make an award that's proportional to the members of the club that are from the Perth Common Good Fund area. Now I realise that that's a bit complicated, but it might just be a case of saying, how many of your members out of the total membership are from Perth, and then apply that proportion to the 3,800.
I think. Thanks, Councillor Barrett. I think in this case there's I can't do anything but, in a sense, agree with your sentiments. It is a difficult one at the moment, and made more difficult, I think, that this club is a relatively new one. This is just setting up, and so there is not so much the track record of exactly how many people are engaged and involved. But is it something then, on balance, that where we want actually to defer consideration of this application until we have more information to hand? I'm getting nods. Okay. Okay. In that case, I think we need Councillor Massey.
Thank you. I'd be happy to grant the amount that you've recommended. I know the football club. I know lots of the kids do come from Perth, the area of Perth. And the application, the ground is not within the Perth area, but near as some of the applications that we've just granted money for, people going to America. America's obviously not in Perth, so the money is being used by people in Perth for a project outside Perth, yes, but I'd be happy to grant that.
Councillor Leishman.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, convener. Thanks for your patience. Yes, I would agree with Councillor Massey. I agree with what he said there. I also think, as well, as from a point of view of trying to encourage health and well-being, sports participation, I'm all for that. So if it comes to a vote, I certainly will be supporting the award.
Okay, thank you for that. There does seem to be a clear division of opinion here, so I think we will go to a vote. I am happy to recommend as the motion that we make the grant of 3,840. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. And Councillor Barrett, Councillor McCall, would you wish to formally propose an amendment to defer?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose deferral, convener.
Thank you. Okay, then, if we can go to a vote.
Thank you, convener. Members, we have a motion from Councillor Parrott to approve the application for £3,840, seconded by Councillor Leishman, and we have a motion, an amendment to defer the application from Councillor Barrett and seconded by Councillor McCall. If you can let me know if you're voting for the motion or the amendment. Councillor Barrett.
Amendment.
Councillor Chan,
Amendment.
Councillor Donaldson,
Abstain.
Councillor Leishman,
Motion.
Councillor Massey,
Motion.
Councillor McCall,
Amendment.
and Councillor Parrott.
Motion.
Thank you. We have 3 votes for the motion and 3 for the amendment. Councillor Parrott, you have the casting vote.
Thank you. I hear the concerns, and hopefully that to me can be brought into the work I propose against review. But on this occasion, I would wish the motion to consider to continue. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. We now move on to the King James VI Golf Club application, and here the golf club have made a request for £17,585.93 in respect of work to mitigate and protect against future flood damage to their premises and facilities on Moncrieff Island. At the moment, the consideration is that a grant of £1,450 is consistent with criteria 10.4, and the eligible costs are only a proportion because a good part of the work was done as emergency work to protect the club against further damage from tidal waters. And therefore, if you like, they had no real option but to go ahead with those works straight away. We do have the facility, our rules are guidelines, and I would seek to propose to members that on this occasion, because those works had an emergency component to them, that we grant them £4,400, which again is almost precisely 25% of the amount requested. I see there's a request for comment here from Lee Haxton, which I'll take first, and then Bailey Hearn. Oh, sorry, but Bailey Hearn, you have a proposal in respect here. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to, I'm a bit confused with the cost, because there's one for 5,769.29, and then there's a total funding request is 17,585.93, where most of that is just voluntary work, and I'm not sure how they put a cost against the voluntary work. So the decisions they're making now are partly because of the decisions that have been taken by this council and forced upon them, whereas they would have had the materials to do the work had we gone ahead and dredged the river and the harbour that we had proposed earlier, because that's where the stuff was going to be dropped, was on the Moncrieff Island, and that's how they've maintained the defences in the past. So I'm happy to put a proposal in for 5,769.29, which is the eligible expenditure.
Okay, welcome to that. Councillor Peter Barrett, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to check that the island and the golf course is in the Perth Common Good Fund ownership. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yep.
So supplementary to that, I wonder whether the costs of the repairs have been factored into the council's Bellwyn scheme application to the Scottish Government for the various severe winter events, and whether there might be funding that will come towards these costs through that avenue.
I'm not aware of that at all, and whether they would qualify. Lee, are you in a position at all to give guidance there?
I'm afraid not, Convener. That would probably be one for our colleagues in environment, unless Fiona knows something from a financial perspective. That's news for me.
Fiona?
Sorry, I'm afraid I don't have any information about that.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the point you raise is a very good one, and there are, we have a sort of, there's a proposal from Chris, there's a proposal from myself, but actually what you suggest there, Councillor Barrett, is, I think, quite fundamental as to whether there could be funds available from other sources. And so I think in view of that, it might be sensible to propose, and I'd ask for a seconder, again, if we defer this so that we can seek guidance on whether there is actually any chance of Scottish Government money through the Belwyn Fund being applied to the protection of Moncrieff Island. Would Councillor Amelia Hearn?
Yeah, based on what Councillor Barrett just said, is there not a requirement for the Common Good Fund to maintain our property, in which case it's incumbent on us to cover the costs of it? Granted, if there's grants elsewhere, that's all well and good, and that would help. But surely, if we're trying to maintain the common good land, that's our responsibility to maintain that. It shouldn't be done through grants from an organisation.
I think we're getting into a very complex area. It has recently been made clear, if you like, that the Common Good Fund is the owner of the, that those lands do lie with the Common Good Fund. But equally, again, having looked into this, I understand that protection against flood damage leaves no liability with the council, or if you like, with the tenant. The flooding is regarded as, if you like, as an act of God, and indeed, perhaps similar to the nature of coastal erosion, we cannot assume a limitless liability to maintain any particular piece of geography in a pre-existing relationship with the water, if you see what I mean. No, I think that here, I think Councillor Parrott does raise a good point, and with regard to this, so I think that I would like to now propose that we do defer this item to seek advice on whether there might be any government funds available through the Belwyn scheme for restitution of essentially what are the flood walls for that part of the island, or the protection actually against tidal waters at the south end. That's the main issue here, as I understand it. Do I have a seconder for that proposal?
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Barrett, President.
And I'm happy to withdraw my proposal and go along with yours.
Okay, thank you for that. Are we content then to defer this item to seek advice on whether there might be funding from other sources? Okay, thank you. Councillor McCall. Yeah.
Time to time, we do get applications from the golf club, and obviously there's the wider situation. And given what Councillor Barrett has recommended that we look at, it's maybe something we need to think about in its entirety, how we maintain and support that. Councillor Ahern made a good point about, the output from the dredging exercise no longer being available, for example. So that's a bit of material difference to them. So it's maybe something we should do alongside seeing if there's other sources of funding, just making sure we do have appropriate arrangements in place for the maintenance and ongoing management of that particular site and the Common Good Fund.
Okay, thank you. We'll seek to take that work forward. Thank you. We now move then to item 6, which is specifically the support with monies set aside in the budget for the annual bonfire and fireworks event on the 5th of November 2024 to be organised by the Perth and Strathern 200 round table. We are asked to consider allocating a grant of £22,030 to cover the costs this year. That is a similar amount, slightly more than in previous years. I'm happy to make the recommendation that we provide support to the tune of £20,000, which is the money that we have set aside in the budget. Are others happy to support that proposal, or are there any counter proposals or amendments? Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Yeah, convener, I'm happy to support that. I think when we consider the pressures on the Common Good Fund budget and the fact that we have, at the start set up a fixed sum for the fireworks displays, then we should stick to that. Appreciate that the Perth and Strathern Roundtable have made changes to the budget and alterations to the budget, which reflect some of the concerns that I raised, I think, last year with regard to the hire of four-wheel drives and the costs for the DJs, which don't appear in the specific items this time round. But I think, we are setting a sum and a budget for them to work within, and we should ask them to work within that budget. So.
Very much, Councillor Barrett. Are we happy then to agree a grant of £20,000 in line with the budget provision? Agreed. Thank you very much. We now move to item 7, the financial statements, and I would ask Donald Coyne to introduce this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. This report provides for noting the details of income and expenditure for the fund to 29th of February 2024 and projected outturn for the current financial year. The report also includes the 24-25 budget and projected outturn to 31st of March 2025. So year-end projections for financial year 23-24 have been refined, and further small movements are anticipated during the closure of the year-end accounts. In the meantime, the projected surplus for the fund is £74,000, and the anticipated balance at 31st of March 2024 is just shy of £2,020,000. The £58,000 increase on the surplus from the previous report includes £10,000 on underspend on repairs and maintenance expenditure, £38,500 underspend on financial assistance. Note that this includes £30,000 cost of living underspend, and this is now allocated to the 24-25 budget to assist with cost of living initiatives. £4,000 underspend on Christmas events activities, and £5,000 additional income from interest on investments. So turning to the 24-25 financial year, there's been adjustment to the anticipated interest to be received from investments. The fixed rate deposit was renewed in February and attracted a higher rate of interest than predicted, hence the £18,000 increase to interest and investments. Anticipated deficit for financial year 24-25 is circa £26,000, and the projected balance at the 31st of March is £1,994,000. Finally, the tender for the Moncrief Island Causeway Works is coming at slightly less than budget, and the contract will be awarded following this meeting. Projected outturn remains at £62,000 to allow for additional fees which may be incurred, for example, licences, ecological survey, etc. The works are programmed to commence on the 17th of June, with the usual caveat that the start date will be subject to suitable weather conditions. That's a quick fly through the paper, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coyne. Are there any questions in relation to this paper? Nope, I see none. Can we note the recommendations of the paper? Okay, noted. Thank you very much. Thank you, Donald. We now move to the private paper. And I was just going to say that we now, it's the sort of thing I'd forget, I do know. So if I can ask members if we adjourn just for a couple of minutes and we move into private session and ask others who are not involved in the private session to briefly leave the chamber whilst we consider this paper, which I think should not be more than a few minutes. Thank you.